Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Countdown to Infinity, which turns out is a completely original name, and no other podcast has that name, and we're fine. Right, Matt?
Absolutely. We are nothing if not original.
Yeah, exactly. It's your favorite podcast from everybody here at Loading Ready Run about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are watching all currently 17 films.
I bought my Black Panther tickets yesterday, so it's 18 films now.
So, well, that's 18 films in a month, but currently 17, with the idea being we'll get to 19.
Yes.
Assuming the world does not blow up.
Yes, that's correct.
All right. That sounds really good. I'm James.
I'm Matt.
He's Matt. And today we are talking about The Incredible Hulk, which came out in 2008, specifically June 13th, 2008. So it came out about 6 weeks after Iron Man. This is directed by Lois Leterrier?
We probably should have looked that up before starting the podcast.
I have it in front of me. I just don't know if I've pronounced it. Louis Leterrier, Leterrier.
Yes, it could be Louis.
Looks French. It could be
Louis. It does sound French, which is why I went to Louis.
Yeah,
but yeah.
Well, we've already messed that up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I can pronounce this guy's name. Ed Norton.
Yes.
Plays Mr. the Hulk.
That's right.
We've got Liv Tyler. We've got Tim Roth, who I love. I love Tim Roth.
Tim Roth is great.
Yeah. We've got some Tim Blake Nelson, some Ty Burrell, some Phil Dunphy for those Modern Family fans out there, and some William Hurt, who I also super love as Thunderbolt. But we'll get to that in a little bit. What's this movie about, Matt?
This movie is about Bruce Banner, who has been bombarded with gamma rays, causing him to transform into a green, very strong rage monster. He has been hiding in Brazil since he was chased out of America by Thunderbolt Ross. But a series of events lead him back to America, where he reconnects with his lost love, Betty Ross, daughter of General Ross, and generally gets into fights with the U.S. military until such a time as Tim Roth, the antagonist of the film, takes a dose of super soldier serum and then a dose of the Hulk's blood and becomes the Abomination. And suddenly the military needs the Hulk to save Harlem from this terrible beast.
You nailed it.
Sure.
That was exactly what that movie was about.
That is more or less exactly what that movie's about, yeah.
Which is impressive because I watched it last night, and I think you also watched it last night.
I did.
All right, let's just... Initial impressions.
It's not as good as Iron Man.
It's not as good as Iron Man. It's not as bad as I think most people remember it being.
Oh, I agree with you on that. It's like I feel like a lot of people either skipped this one or get this one confused with the Ang Lee Hulk, and the general sort of negative reception of the Ang Lee Hulk film rubs off on this movie. This movie is fine. Like it's not as good as Iron Man, but it's fine. It's a good, entertaining action film.
I think the problem that it suffers is because it was basically I would assume, I don't know the exact production dates, but my guess is it lined up pretty close with Iron Man having only come out 6 weeks later. Mm-hmm. So clearly they were being made around the same time.
Definitely. They were at two different studios at the time.
Yeah, and it definitely felt a little different. Like it doesn't really feel like a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie.
Right.
It doesn't have that feeling of sort of the light feeling to it. The happy-go-lucky, the humor is certainly not there. Like there's jokes.
Yeah,
right?
but the tone is completely different.
Tone is completely different.
It's a much more like dour. I want to say introspective, but it's not that introspective. But it is much more of a dour sort of down-tempo movie.
Yeah.
Part of that, I think, owes to just the way Norton plays Banner.
Yes.
Because like he's not the sort of like charming, awkward Bruce Banner that I cannot remember his name.
Ruffalo.
Mark Ruffalo, thank you. Is in the more recent Marvel movies.
Yeah.
He's a much more sort of like sad sack
Yes.
all the way through this movie, and
He is absolutely, yeah.
It's tough to make a sort of like happy, upbeat superhero movie when your main character is constantly mourning the fact that, you know, he can't have any friends.
Yeah, I mean, like the majority of this movie, up until basically the last like big fight scene with him and the Abomination, is him trying to cure himself. Right?
Yeah.
He spends 90% of the movie trying to figure out a way to completely rid himself of the Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the sense that he kind of just accepts his fate at the end there.
Yeah, he's moved on to trying to control the Hulk at the end.
Yeah. And this is a weird Hulk too. Like they've definitely, it does feel like they kind of ignore this movie. They put a lot of emphasis on his heart monitor.
Yeah,
Like it's some weird special. I mean, in the movie, it's clear it's 200, right?
yeah.
Like
he hits 200 beats per minute, and
he
it's game
hulks
over.
out.
Yeah,
And it's just like that's silly because obviously it wouldn't have worked at all if that was always the case in the later movies. Hulk needs to be in control of being able to go back and forth between Hulk and Bruce Banner to a degree.
right.
And it also led to that incredibly useless scene in the motel with him and Betty.
Yes.
When they're, about to do their thing. And it's just like, oh no, I can't get too excited. It's just like, what?
Just a little excited.
But what are you talking about? You can't get excited. You're supposed to not be able to get angry.
Yeah.
Anger is what triggers it. And the fact that what they did in the later Hulk movies, the line, and we're going to get to this in a few movies from now when we talk about the Avengers, but hands down, my favorite line to this day is, "My secret is I'm always angry," and he turns and smashes the crap out of the thing.
Yeah.
It's
that's
still
a great
the best
line.
moment. Is still the best moment I think that they have filmed in all 17 of these movies. But it's clear that when doing the Hulk in the Avengers, they looked at this and went, that didn't really work, or at least what they were trying to do was kind of not great.
Yeah. So we should probably like circle back a little bit. This, of course, was produced by Universal Studios.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually Marvel Studios, because Marvel Studios didn't exist at this point in time. Whereas Iron Man was, I believe, Paramount did the first Iron Man movie.
I can find out.
I'm pretty sure it was Paramount. But yeah, these two movies in production at the same time. I assume the reason they went ahead with this film when they did, rather than something else, because this movie does follow on from Ang Lee's Hulk. And Ang Lee's Hulk was not super well received. But I assume the reason this one got greenlit versus, just going straight into Thor or what have you, is that Universal already had the rights for this. And so they were like, well, we want to do a stealth reboot, and we hear you're starting to launch this cinematic universe. Why don't we do a stealth reboot, and we can just use the Hulk? But, of course, it's also distributed by Universal Studios, and as a result, the actual DVD box is not the same. The DVD menus are different because it uses like the Universal House format on the Blu-ray menu, rather than the ones that the Marvel movies have. So that the actual interface on the Blu-ray is different than it was for Iron Man, and then it will be for the later movies that were brought under the Marvel Studios banner. So like it just sort of interesting development stuff with regards to this movie, because it is not the obvious choice for the next one to go to if you're trying to kick off a universe, where it's like,
no,
we're going to go to Iron Man and do that one because we think it's going to be cool and fun, and we're setting the whole tone for our universe with Iron Man. Now let's follow it up with a super risky stealth reboot of the franchise that we just about killed with the last movie.
Right.
Like that thought process doesn't follow. So it's got to be like Universal was just sort of champing the bit to get another movie out, and Marvel was like, sure, go ahead, let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I'm looking at the Wikipedia pages here right now. It says that both the Incredible Hulk and Iron Man were the production company was Marvel Studios, distributed by Universal for the Hulk, and Paramount did Iron Man.
Right.
But yeah, and then it's a little weird. I also learned by reading some stuff last night that apparently Edward Norton actually came in and did basically a rewrite on the script.
Yeah. So my understanding is that's why he's no longer the Hulk.
Yeah.
Was that he wanted full script review and rewrite privileges on every Marvel movie that he was in, and Marvel was just like, no.
Well, they also didn't give him a writing credit for it either.
Right.
He is not credited as a writer on The Incredible Hulk, and I imagine that might have been a point of contention as well.
Maybe.
But I don't really know. Obviously, we'll never really know the full scope of what happened with Edward Norton and
that Marvel, may also just be with regards to like WGA rules and whatnot. He didn't actually change enough of the script to warrant to writing credit. Who knows? That's
what I read, but who knows? So, but yeah, it's interesting just watching it and seeing. I appreciate that they just skipped past the origin story. You know, they didn't feel a need to tell us how we got to this point, which was pretty interesting when you think that the excuse me, when you think about the fact that the 2003, so we're talking 5 years removed, and they're like, it's fine. People know, what the Hulk is all about. And I don't know. I don't think I feel like in today's, I think they probably would kick in with the origin story.
You think so? Because I disagree.
I don't know.
Spider-Man Homecoming being the obvious counterpoint to that, where it was people know how Spider-Man came to be.
Yeah, but we're talking about, like, let's say if this Hulk movie had never been made, and they decided, okay, they just skipped the Hulk for this entire portion of the MCU. They're just like, we're not doing the Hulk. We're bringing somebody else in instead. Maybe they brought in like Doctor Strange earlier, right? And they said, no, forget it. We're not doing the Hulk. And then once we get through the end of Phase 3, they say, okay, we have the Hulk now. Like, let's use this Hulk. You don't think they would do an origin story at this point?
It's a slightly different context because it's now like 15 years removed rather than 5.
That's what I'm saying.
And so that, like, maybe now there's enough time between the previous version and the new one that doing a full-blown reboot with an origin story maybe makes sense. But by the same token, the Hulk is one of Marvel's big titles. It's one of the ones that had movies back in the way back in the day. It's one of the there's a live action TV show. There was the cartoon show, like Spider-Man and Hulk both had 1960s cartoon shows. Like, this may be one that they would be willing to just assume that people know that, hey, it's Bruce Banner. He was hit by gamma rays.
Yeah, you know the song.
Yeah. So they may have still just let this one slide. I mean, to be fair, they didn't actually completely skip the origin story. They just front-loaded it into the credits. So you actually get the whole, he's Bruce Banner, and he gets hit by gamma rays, and he turns into the Hulk, and then he tears down this entire lab and puts Betty in the hospital, and General Ross is angry at him and sends him away. And you get that without words or dialogue, and you get that in the first, 2 minutes of screen time, but it's there.
Yep.
They didn't omit it entirely.
What about let's talk about the look.
The look.
The look of the Hulk? Like, this is a very different looking Hulk than what we have now.
Yeah, he's too sinewy. He's too he's very stripy.
He's very leathery.
Yeah.
It's a little weird, and it's also, I think they've done, with the Hulk in Thor, with the most recent viewing of Hulk, where he's just full on, I'm just talking as the Hulk.
Yes.
That is what they probably should have done here. given him a little bit more character.
Yeah.
A few more lines of dialogue. Because apparently, I from what I understand, there was contention as to he doesn't get to say anything. But then they're like, no, he gets to say these few things like Hulk smash. And it's just like, all right, sure.
Yeah.
That's neat. But
I kind of like the way they've done it because they've given him an arc through the films now, right? Like in this one, he's the sort of primal beast. And then the very next time we see the Hulk, he's a primal beast in this one. But at the end, he's like, all right, I need to go off into the wilderness of Bella Coola, BC, and train myself on how to control this. And then when we get to the Avengers, he's like sort of controlling it. He's got it under wraps, and he's able to keep it most of the time, but he's still on, like, if he gets hurt, it'll still come out and what have you. And then by the end of that movie, he's like, no, actually, I can just turn it on if I want to. And then by like Age of Ultron, he's essentially like, they've essentially got it down to a science where he can like turn it on, and then they have a way to turn him off.
Yeah.
And then for Thor Ragnarok, he's basically at the point where it's not quite at will, but like he's inhabited the Hulk enough that his personality is starting to come out.
Yep.
And so that actually, like, I like the fact that he has that arc. It's a little bit at a time, but he's developing as a character. By the next movie, I expect to see that he will essentially be able to turn it on and off at will. Because that's like, I mean, Mark Ruffalo has even talked about how that's sort of what they're trying to do with him, where they just want to turn him into more of a character and less a force of nature. So they're bringing more personality to that character with each appearance. And I think that's cool. I think that works.
Yeah, no, I agree. That is a very good point. I like that. So what about the bad guy? I remember, or I said last episode, I wasn't a huge fan of Obadiah and his big suit. I think kind of felt like it just felt a little boring. I really like Abomination here.
So do you like Abomination or do you like Blonsky?
I like Blonsky and I like the Abomination. Like, I think as a character and as a bad guy, Blonsky is probably one of the strongest in the first few Marvel movies. Because like we've got Obadiah, whatever, as I said, kind of fell flat for me. You got Blonsky, who I really like. I don't even remember. I'm like I remember. We won't get into much. Like Iron Man 2, Thor, like. Captain, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I think Blonsky / the Abomination might be my favorite bad guy from Phase 1,
including Loki.
I guess Loki. I guess let's go up until like the standalone films, because I will agree Loki is probably the best once you get to the Avengers.
Yeah,
but
like,
if we're
Loki
talking,
is the villain of Thor as well. Like, he is the primary antagonist of that film.
Yeah, he's not as good in that one, though.
Fair enough.
I guess I haven't seen that one for a while, so we'll rewatch it. But I was just kind of blown away by how, I don't know, I just loved the story. I loved his motivation. Like, he comes on as this guy who's just, like, super reliable, right? Like, he's here because he knows what he's doing.
Yes. And then,
in the comics, he's an actual KGB agent, I think.
Right.
And in here, they were like, no, let's not do that. Let's just make you a soldier, and like a really, really good one.
Yeah, I believe he's on loan from the SAS or something, or the Royal Marines or what have you from the UK.
Yeah, and he comes in and he goes out on this first mission, and he's angry, I guess, to a point where he's a little upset that he wasn't fully informed as to what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, I'm still in. Like, let's keep going. Like, I want to see this through, and I can respect that. Like, he had his orders and he wants to stick with them. And then, he gets injected with the serum, and just that scene where Thunderbolt is coming back downstairs to where he's like, because after he's been like kicked into a tree, which was super badass, by the way.
Yeah.
He comes down and he's like, oh, dude, have we found his next of kin yet? And he's just sitting there taking off the little finger wraps. And he's like, hey, I'm good to go.
Yeah, I'm
Let's
ready
do
for
this." And
I'm ready
like,
for round
oh,
3.
hell yeah. Yeah, like when he did that, I was 51% on his side. I was like, hell yeah. Beat the shit out of Hulk. Like, I want to see this now.
So Blonsky is not my favorite villain. One of the things I think is interesting is that he is the Abomination, at least, is basically Ironmonger again, because it's just
Kind of. I guess, yeah.
Whereas Iron Man was like, hey, I'm a guy in a suit, and then the villain was like, hey, I'm a guy in a bigger, angrier suit. This is, hey, I'm a Hulk. Hey, I'm a bigger, angrier Hulk. But that said, there's one action scene in this, easily the best action scene in the whole movie, in my opinion, that sold me on the idea of the universe 110%. And that is the scene just before he gets kicked into a tree, where they're at Culver College, or Culver University, rather. And Blonsky is on the serum, but hasn't gone over the top yet. And he just goes one-on-one with the Hulk.
Yeah.
It is another version of the super serum. We hadn't seen a Captain America movie at that point. That scene is proto Captain America versus the Hulk. And I saw that scene, was like, I need Captain America now.
Yeah.
That scene is so good. And it gives you a taste of what's coming down the pipe, and Captain America could not come out fast enough for me after that. It was that scene is just so cool. Watching
That's
him
fair.
doing flips over the Hulk and out running twice as fast as all the other soldiers on the field. And when the Hulk has those 2 big metal shields and he's just trying to hammer him, and he's jumping off the shields. Ugh, it's so good.
It is. I think I feel like it should be said, though, that when you compare Iron Man to Ironmonger and Hulk to Abomination, I feel like Obadiah just told a bunch of scientists to make a suit for him, whereas as Blonsky is inject it into my veins and turn me into something that I don't know if I can come back from. I feel like the stakes are a little higher there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's fair.
And also, I mean, I guess I really like Tim Roth. I think he's a really fantastic actor, and I think just he does such a great job with this character that maybe that's blinding me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's super good in this role. He's so intense and has that sort of that sort of aggressive edge to his character, where he's just always raring to go. Which, I mean, Abomination in this movie is basically an aggression monster rather than a rage monster, so that makes sense.
Right.
But
Yep.
He's cool. You want to see what he's gonna do. You want to see where this is gonna go, because he's just champing the bit for it. So yeah, he's a good character. And as I say, that one scene especially just completely sold me on the next 5 years of Marvel movies.
Yeah, I think as we go through this, as we go through all these films, I think we're gonna find that the bad guys are maybe not Loki aside, because clearly these writers love Loki. The movie makers love this character because they keep bringing him back over and over again, because he actually has a really deep character. There's a lot going on there, whereas all the one-offs are just yeah, it's a bad guy.
Yeah.
His, their motivation is mostly just about, power or control, and there's a lot more going on with Loki.
Yeah, and I mean, that again comes back to my sort of pet opinion about the universe, where we pit these heroes against dark reflections of themselves, so that they have to conquer their internal demons. It's not about whether they're going to beat the bad guy. It's about coming to terms with some aspect of themselves throughout the yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. The one-off villains mostly are just one-off villains. People call this a problem, and maybe it is just because we don't have sort of a rich rogues gallery from which to draw of recurring villains. But I think it works. I'm so invested in the heroes that the villains being Monsters of the Week doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you want to talk about villains that we're not going to see come back, though, how about that sequel bait of Mr. Blue becoming the leader? That is never going to show up again.
Yeah, they didn't really ever do anything with that. Like, the blood drops in, and his head goes all kind of crazy, and then you're like, that's it. You never see him again.
Yeah, because Universal is never going to distribute another Hulk movie, so Marvel is never going to make another standalone Hulk movie, so that's just never going to happen. We just have to assume that the leader is out there being evil somewhere in the Marvel universe, and none of the heroes care enough to stop him.
It's just kind of for anybody. Do you know? Because I don't honestly know a whole lot about the leader. Do you know enough about it to talk about it for a second?
I honestly had to Google who he became last night, but he's got like psionic powers and a super genius level intellect, and he is a regular villain of the Hulk. Like that's the like two sentence Wikipedia description.
That's fair.
I'd have to look it up in order to actually go deeper on that. He's a bad guy.
I've had a genius idea, by the way. 2 movies in, I've already had this genius idea for Wikipedia, or at least the editors of Wikipedia who are big into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It became so blatantly apparent to me last night that I think 90% of every actor who is working these days exists in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
More or less.
I think we need a badge on the top of every actor's page that just displays whether they exist in the MCU or not. Because I think it would take less time to add those, or it would probably take more time to add those to the people who are than aren't. But I don't really care. I want to see it because I was watching last night and Ty Burrell shows up. And Ty Burrell is, again, I mentioned this off the start, he is the dad on Modern Family, which is, if you don't know, it's a very, very popular sitcom on ABC. And I was like, oh yeah, freaking Phil Dunphy is in the universe. Obviously not as Phil Dunphy, but this character and this actor is here. And like, I started looking and I was like, oh my God, just everybody exists in this universe. We should have a badge on their Wikipedia pages that just is an instant. Because I feel like, here's where I'm coming from. I want to help out the casting directors over at over at Marvel Studios. You know, I feel like they probably have a hard enough time keeping track.
Have we cast that guy already?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly. Wait, You know that guy who would be perfect for this movie? That the dad on Modern Family. It's just like, oh no, sorry, he was in the Incredible Hulk. Damn it.
They've already had that problem because, I can't think of her name, but an actress was cast in both. Man, I'm blanking on names hard tonight. Cast in both Civil War and not Jessica Jones, not Iron Fist, not Daredevil, but Luke Cage, and played two different characters in both of those. She played like the villain in the one, and then the villain in Luke Cage, but also like the woman whose son died that guilt trips Tony at the elevator in Civil War.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that like they've and they're two different characters. Like the two characters are named differently, but it's the same actress. So they're already in that sort of a situation. But Ty Burrell, was that Liv Tyler's new boyfriend?
Yeah, that's the psychiatrist boyfriend who honestly doesn't have an enormous role in the movie. He is forgettable and pretty much doesn't. I feel like there must be something more that we didn't see that either got cut or just never made it past scripting. Because like he's so inconsequential in this film.
He has one important point. Well, he has two important things to do. Important thing one is to give General Ross a lead, because that's how they find him at Culver University. It's like, oh, he's staying in our second room, so go get him. They're going to the university tomorrow, because he rolls over for General Ross, and then his second job is to get cheated on by Liv Tyler later on in the movie.
Yeah, but that doesn't really. I feel like there are other ways to do that. Yeah, I feel like there's a ways to do that rather than, because the fact that he's the boyfriend didn't really play in. Like, she pretty much just immediately is like, oh, Bruce Banner's back? All right, well, I'm obviously clearly still in love with you. And because I don't like, she barely even talks to Leonard again.
Yeah, it's
name.
over the moment she sees Bruce in the the restaurant door.
So it's just like, I feel like they could have done something a little bit more interesting, a different character. I don't know, something that would have made use of getting those, mainly that number one job done, because the number two, as you mentioned, they're getting cheated on by Liv Tyler is like, okay, I guess, neat.
Yeah.
One other thing that I read really quickly before we move on here, unless you have more things that you'd like to talk about, is David Duchovny was apparently a front runner before Norton was cast.
Really?
Oh my God, I want to see that movie.
Yeah, I can see it.
I want to see David Duchovny as the Hulk so bad right now. That would be great.
All right, I see it. Other things to talk about with regards to this movie. I'm going to just rattle off a couple of things that I thought about while the movie was playing, which is Bruce Banner moving to Rio from Virginia. It's like, oh, I can't control this rage monster. I'll move to one of the most populous cities in the world.
Yeah.
And then complains about the idea of being in a populous city later in the movie. It's like,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Two.
Also, I loved the bit. It reminded me when he hulks out in Brazil and then wakes up in Guatemala.
Yes.
Which, check your geography. Those are not freaking close at all. I love that little bit.
Yeah.
And then he gets from Guatemala, I guess, all the way through Mexico back in the U.S. Doesn't really... That's sort of like movie magic, like, who cares?
Yeah.
We just need him back in the States.
Yeah,
but
he's sitting there, like, begging for money, and then...
Yeah, and then
17 days later, he's managed to save up enough panhandling to buy a plane ticket home, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. Who knows? All right, what else you got?
Number two, police car boxing gloves.
Yeah, police car boxing gloves was phenomenal.
Yeah, one of the best things in this whole movie. Also... I would have liked to have seen this in a funnier film because it feels a little out of tone in the movie. But when he does the big heroic jump off the helicopter and they're like, well, you're not even sure you'll change. And he's like, no, I have to try. And then he leaps out of the helicopter. You're like, oh, he's going to change. And then he's like, oh, shit. And just pancakes on the ground. Like, that's really funny. It would be a lot funnier in a modern version of this movie.
Yes.
Well, because it's like a cartoon bit.
Yeah, and the reason that it doesn't work in this movie, in my opinion, is you've made such a big deal out of every time he changes into the Hulk, and it takes time, right? It's not this immediate thing that happens.
Yeah.
Whereas for that gag to work, it needs to be a instantaneous, like, go, right? Like, and we're going. And it doesn't, that's just not the case. But I agree. I think in a funnier, or in a later film, that would have probably landed a little bit stronger.
Yeah. And then there was one other thing. What was the other thing? Oh, them bringing back the Lonely Man song when he's, bereft and like, looking for help in Central America. Good use of that track. That's very good.
Yep. All right, so we've come to the all-important conclusion, which is, where does this rank on all of these movies that we have watched so far? Which is to say, this is number 2. Like, it's not as good as Iron Man.
No.
It is a lot better than I remember it being.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It is a good movie.
This is one where if you're listening to this and you haven't watched this movie in a while, it's not going to be one of the best Marvel movies, but it's a good solid one that is worth revisiting because you'll probably like it more rewatching it than you remember liking it the first time you watched it.
I 100% agree with that. I think, unfortunately, I do think that after the 19 of these movies, it's still going to be probably pretty low on my list.
Yeah,
but
I think it'll be low on mine too.
something that I think is going to come up over and over again is that even if a movie is low on this specific list, it's still a good movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's still worth your time to go and watch this movie. It is, to be honest, maybe a little longer than it needs to be. This one especially. Like, it's just shy of 2 hours, which for what's going on in it probably wasn't completely necessary.
Yeah.
But I would say it is 100% worth your time to, if you haven't watched it recently and you're listening to this and you're thinking, I could take her to leave it. Take it. Like, go watch it. I think you're going to like it.
Yeah.
More than you remember.
Yeah. I mean, like, we haven't been giving numerical rankings to these movies, but by and large, I feel like all the Marvel movies fall in between like a 6.5 and a 9.5.
Yeah.
And I would definitely rate this like the lower end 6.5, 7, but it's still like a 6.5 or 7 out of 10. Like, there are way worse movies than that.
Yeah, certainly way worse comic book movies, right?
Definitely.
Like, you generally, in a blind test, if you said Incredible Hulk or any other, random superhero movie in the last 20, 25 years, the Incredible Hulk is still probably going to be on par, maybe better, maybe worse, but probably on par with every other one that's out there.
Well, I mean, quick test. Incredible Hulk or X-Men 3?
Incredible Hulk.
Incredible Hulk, Daredevil.
God, I don't even remember Daredevil.
It's just as well. Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, God, I forgot that movie existed.
Incredible Hulk or, I don't know, one of the Blades?
Ooh, that's close. I would probably take the original Blade over Incredible Hulk, but it's close.
Yeah.
And that might just be because I'm misremembering Blade.
Incredible Hulk or any of the 3 Fantastic Fours.
Oh, Incredible Hulk. Easily.
Yeah.
And I'd take Incredible Hulk over the 2 new Spider-Man movies.
The Amazing Spider-Mans.
The Amazing Spider-Man.
I agree with that.
Again, I think it just averages out that, yes, there are probably some superhero movies that are better than this that exist outside the MCU. But I think a vast majority of them are actually still worse than this one. So go watch it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That's going to do it.
Cool.
Thank you, Matthew, for joining me as always.
You're welcome.
I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks. This is going to be a lot of fun. Coming up next is Iron Man 2.
Oh, right. We have another Iron Man before we get to Thor.
Yeah, we have another Iron Man coming out, which is
Here
pretty
I was
exciting.
all excited for Thor.
I know. No, you got Iron Man 2, then you got Thor, then we got Captain America,
then the Avengers.
Then we're on to our first Avengers movie. So, yeah. So stick around for all those. Those are coming up over the next few weeks. If you want to follow us over on Twitter and see whatever we're talking about there, I am at James_LRR. Matt is Matt_LRR. You can see all of the other content that we produce over at LoadingReadyRun.com or twitch.tv/LoadingReadyRun. You can find Matt over at twitch.tv/Matt_LR. Is that correct?
Yeah,
LRR.
Matt_LRR.
Yeah.
And then,
what are you streaming right now?
Hmm?
What are you streaming right now? What are you streaming these days?
Oh, so I'm trying to do a playthrough of Final Fantasy VI, but I've been running aground of some technical issues recently where I either have a horrendous audio delay or OBS crashes so bad I have to reboot my computer. So that's on hold at the moment, and I'm just more or less playing PUBG. So
yeah. PUBG.
Hopefully I'll get that fixed and I can carry on with my my Final Fantasy VI playthrough soon.
All right.
But yeah, and then I'm uploading VODs of the Final Fantasy VI stuff to my YouTube channel. You can search me, Matt Wiggins, on YouTube, and my 52 movies vlog. I won't say vlog this time.
You literally just said it.
Well, I won't call it a vlog this time.
You said it again.
Like,
oh, it's such a terrible name. Nobody says that.
The 52 movies vlog.
Honestly, you should probably just call it the 52 movies vlog because you will get more people angry at you but giving you them views.
That's true.
So,
I mean,
yeah.
the best way to get the right answer on the internet is to state the wrong one.
Exactly. All right. I also really want to quickly thank everybody over at patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. We wouldn't be able to do this stuff. It wasn't for your support. So we really appreciate that. Check it out again, patreon.com/loadingreadyrun. youtube.com/LoadingReadyRun. We will see you next week for Iron Man 2. Toodles! All right, we're back.
Yeah.
You thought we were gone, but we're back again because we got to talk about the post-credit scene.
Except that it's a pre-credit scene in this one, so we should have done it before the credits.
It's true we should have, but it's a little awkward because I feel like this was definitely I'm legitimately curious to know when this credit scene was filmed, because from what I've read, it was basically like, hey, Robert Downey Jr., can you do us a solid and record this little bit that we can put in at the end of the Hulk movie, because we're trying something new here.
Yeah, I think that's probably exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Like, it was likely filmed long after the rest of the movie was done. I just think it's interesting that it went in before the end credits. Just because, like, that had to have been like I gotta think that's had to have been either a distribution decision, or they were just like, we want people to see that the characters can appear in other movies, and if we put it after the credits, not enough people will see that.
We'll see it. Yep.
So I think that's probably why they did it, where it's like people have to know.
Yeah, and I think it made sense to do it with, because it's the scene is it's Ross at a bar, which, to be honest, at this point I feel like he should be in like 1,000 meetings to go over what the hell just happened, on campus and in New York.
Yeah.
But sure, whatever. He's
what
drinking
just
in a bar.
happened to Harlem?
Yeah, but sure, he's in a bar drinking because that's what these people do. And Tony Stark walks up to him and kind of gives him some shit for what's happened. And it was pretty cute.
Yeah,
the exchange is
he gets some shit too.
Yeah, it's true, and it's a fun exchange, which is, I don't know, maybe doesn't quite fit the tone because a lot of people literally just died. But sure, whatever. And he talks about the fact that they're putting a team together. Wink, wink, the Avengers. And I think it was a good choice on the studio's part to get Robert Downey Jr. in there as Tony Stark rather than bring in Nick Fury again.
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Which
I totally agree.
Which is what they did at the end of Iron Man, because that would have just basically been the same scene. Like, there's nothing different there. So basically, to get Tony in there made a lot of sense and seemed like it worked fairly well. It's one that I actually completely forgot existed. Like, I knew there was a post-credit scene, but I honestly, going into it, I was just like, I really don't know what's coming up.
Yeah.
I don't remember who's in it. I don't remember what it's about. But yeah.
I remembered this one.
It's very similar to the one from Iron Man, but I think I liked it. It was good.
Yeah.
So
it leaves you wanting more.
Yeah. Solid 6 out of 10 post-credit, but actually pre-credit scene.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that's going to do it.
Cool.
Bye, Matt.
Bye, James.